Hey, what's up, team? So we just had the latest Tico talks for Throne and Liberty, and we've got a pretty packed schedule for the next couple months, with some new content, combat changes, and some major system overhauls coming in March and beyond. So let's get into it. So once again, the Wilds of Talandre update is set to drop on March 6th. And then a couple weeks later, on March 13th, we're set to get Nebula Island, 2 more 3-star dungeons, and 2 additional solo bosses, as well as the new artifact system coming. This system is essentially a new vertical progression system, where we'll be able to collect these different set pieces for artifacts and slot them in. Each one has additional stats attached to them, but it's pretty RNG. And moving on, a couple weeks after that, on March 27th, we'll get the trait resonance adjustments. So I'm assuming what this means is currently in Korea, trait resonance is a little bit grindy and pretty RNG, so we're probably getting some adjustments to make that less tedious, I would assume. As well as we get the new epic runes, so these are purple runes that will be leveled up to 80, and will pretty much follow the same system we have now. And then we get the start of Dimensional Trials and Ranked Arena Season 2. Now here we finally hear some news about how the new open world field bosses are going to be working. So we're going to have 3 new portals now for these field bosses. A peace portal, a faction mode portal, and a guild mode portal. And it looks like they're capping these instances to 96 players each. And in GVG you can bring 36 to 48 players. That's a requirement to enter the portal. And you're going to be having a 1v1 boss fight with another guild in the portal, as well as matchmaking is also going to be taken into account. And I believe for matchmaking, they're taking your win-loss ratio into account, as well as how many players you're bringing. But we'll see how this pans out. The faction mode will work similarly to how Dominion works, I'm guessing. So you'll enter the portal and be randomly assigned to either one of the teams, or you can go in as a full party of 6, and your party will be match made on either one of the sides. I'm curious how peace mode will work. Will it be an instance for the entire region, or will you be just in a peace mode boss with your server? I guess we'll have to see how that works. This is a great step in the right direction, I feel. Tons of people have been voicing their opinions on the alliance system and how it's kind of ruining these open world fights. So I'm curious how people are going to take these new changes. I think it's a good change overall. And it's going to give smaller guilds the opportunity to compete on a hopefully more even playing field. Yeah, I think a lot of people, including myself, are going to be really happy with these new field boss changes and to how the portals work. And it also just shows that AGS and NC are listening to our feedback and are willing to make these pretty drastic changes to how the game works to improve our experience. Now moving on to arc bosses. So I believe they're the same for the peace and faction options, but guild battles will stay open world. And also now 2 arch bosses will spawn simultaneously. So this is going to add a ton more arc bosses, and with more arc bosses comes more loot. So hopefully this makes it a little bit easier to acquire these arch boss weapons. But yeah, I also think this is a pretty good change and a good step in the right direction as well. So here we're going to be moving on to some gear acquisition and accessibility changes. So we have some big updates that are coming to gear progression. So our Abyss coins and Dimensional Soul Shards will be consolidated and turned into T1 and T2 tokens, potentially simplifying the currency system. So that means that all of our tokens that we've been gathering in T1 so far will be converted into a T1 token. And moving forward into T2, we'll have to acquire these new tokens to get the new T2 gear. So all the people that have been stacking everything up previously won't be able to just hop into Talandre and flood the market with all this new T2 gear. I think this is a pretty good system, and it also makes it a little bit easier to understand where the different types of gear are coming from and which tokens require what piece of gear. And as with co-op dungeons and Abyss contracts, they will now award T1 or T2 tokens depending on the content difficulty. And these tokens will also be available in the arena shop and weekly mission menu. So yeah, well, this consolidation reduces the number of different currencies, which is a good change in my opinion. It's worth considering how this might affect progression for new players. Hopefully it does make gearing up more straightforward for acquiring these tokens. And yeah, it gives a more straightforward and clear understanding for new players. So now we're moving on to another amazing change coming, and that's to our weekly mission system. So we're getting a weekly mission system overhaul, and this is a new system featuring 15 plus different missions covering PvE, PvP, and lifestyle content. And this is going to act kind of like a battle pass system in a way. So you're going to complete these different missions on the mission board, and each time you get them, you're going to get a type of resource or currency that's going to progress the top of the track. And you're going to get more points available of this currency than are required, making it a bit easier to fill in all the rewards. So this is a great change. We're moving away from the current weekly system, which in my opinion leaves a lot to be desired. You're only really going for one specific reward, and you can only actually unlock one other than your trait unlock stones. And this new system is going to allow us to progress the full track and receive the rewards immediately when we've completed them. And yeah, the rewards are just way better in the track. We're getting the 150 runes, some of this new currency, and a selection box, a weapon selection box that has some of the new T2 gear in it. And this weapon box is similar to the one that you can get in the daily contract merchant, where you can use your contract coins to acquire a T1 weapon selection box. And it looks like we're just getting this for free in the new weekly system. Now, I don't know if these rewards will rotate or change, but even if they don't, these are just great across the board. Yeah, I'd also like to add that they did address auto blocking and how it's a code of conduct violation, and how they're going to be taking action on the people who are abusing the scripts. Although they didn't mention any systems or system changes that are going to be coming to remove the ability to even have these scripts working in the first place, I think it's a step in the right direction of at least acknowledging that they exist in the first place. But hopefully in the future, they can find a way to eliminate them entirely, as it can ruin different PvP experiences for a lot of people, including myself. So let's move on to some combat changes. I've been really looking forward to some of these, so let's go over them. So there's going to be no more movement speed penalty in combat. So this is pretty huge. It's really annoying getting stuck in slow movement speed combat when you're auto attacking something, especially as a melee player. Speaking from experience, I know that it's frustrating just having someone walk out of your auto attack range. And it's just going to be hopefully making combat for melee feel a little less sticky. And to keep going with that, they're increasing melee attack ranges as well, which is again hopefully just going to make melee feel a little bit better when you're sticking to a target. They've added some improved skill fluidity. So this is hopefully going to introduce a smoother combat experience for the skills that it affects. The one example they gave is the bow charge skill, and how you're not stuck in this charge animation when you're casting. So hopefully they do add this to a lot of different skills in the game, and it'll make the combat feel a lot less clunky in certain scenarios. And this one's huge. We're getting better tab targeting based on camera direction. So this is going to hopefully enhance the accuracy of both our PvE encounters and PvP fights, making it significantly easier to tab onto the targets that are directly in front of us, rather than targeting things off in Narnia and getting frustrated with the system not knowing who you're actually targeting half the time in larger fights. And continuing on with target changes, we're also getting a setting to ignore friendly targets when clicking. So this is going to be huge. I know a lot of times when I'm trying to get a target and there's a lot of friendly bodies on top, I'm just constantly selecting my teammates. So yeah, a lot of people have been asking for this, and it's going to reduce a lot of accidental misclicks in large scale battles. We're getting a max zoom distance increase by 33%. I'm not sure if we needed this, but I think a lot of players wanted it. And character inertia is going to be reduced as well, making movement feel hopefully more responsive. I am curious about some of the things that they mentioned in the previous Tico talk, where they were changing how movement works and going from the current system to a more camera-based system, as well as adding backpedaling. They didn't mention any of that in these changes, but I wonder if it was just an oversight. I guess we'll see. So March is going to be introducing a lot of combat adjustments, and they all seem really well thought out, and a lot of community feedback went into this, and you can tell. And we're also getting some more combat changes coming in April with improved target visualization, target of target display, which is pretty huge, and monster type indicators on nameplates. Adding on to this, I'd really love to see some class icons beside each nameplate, or at least the option to, because having to constantly look at my UI frames to tell what the weapon types of who I'm targeting is can get a bit strenuous sometimes. And just having a class icon next to their nameplate in battle would go a long way to identify who you want to be targeting. And continuing on, we're getting some dynamic event changes. They're increasing rewards for the first 15 dynamic events per week, and activity points are capping at 15 events. So the priority for these changes goes as follows: guild events, followed by Dominion, Peace, then co-op modes. So yeah, starting March 6th, you'll get an increase in dynamic event rewards for the first 15 that you complete each week. This is another great change, because right now it feels like going to dynamic events isn't really worth it unless you're just trying to do the content, but having substantial rewards goes a long way, and bumping these up is a step in the right direction to getting more players to actually show up to these events. They will also be introducing a new type of blue gear. They refer to it as T2 blue gear or T2 rare gear. And this T2 version of blue gear is going to be better than T1 gear. And this is going to have better stats on it than our current T1 purple epic gear. And this is to help transition newer players into T2 gear. So if you're a veteran and you already have all your T1 gear maxed, this isn't going to affect you too much. But it's just a step in the right direction to get newer players on track and get them into newer content a little bit faster. Also, in my previous video, I did go over how they're not going to be doing a hyperboost server for the NA region. And this is probably one of the systems that they're putting in place to have catch-up mechanics for newer players or returning players. Again, if you want to hear my full thoughts on the hyperboost server, you can check out my last video where I went over the article by Sportskeeda and the interview with one of the globalization managers. But yeah, on that note, we won't be getting hyperboost servers in our region, which is a good thing. So let's go over another new system that they're going to be adding. So we're getting this gear sync system added into the game, where you'll be able to slot in one of your higher upgraded items, let's say a +9, and then sync another piece of gear to that piece. So if you slot in a +9, and then you slot in a +0, let's say, into the tab, it will sync that level 0 up to +9 or +12 or whatever the initial piece you've selected is. It looks like you'll be able to have a couple different pieces slotted in here. And this is going to allow a lot of different build diversity because you won't have to grind so many pieces up to max level. Again, another huge step in the right direction. Getting rid of some of the tedium of having multiple different sets and allowing people to experiment with different builds while reducing the grind to get those pieces up to max level is just an amazing change. Now, how we unlock these different slots, I'm not too sure. Maybe the first couple ones will require some initial base resources, but it looks like there's a third tab that may cost Lucent. I guess we'll have to see. So continuing on, we're going to be getting raid frames on March 13th. So these new raid frames are coming for guild raids, field bosses, and conquest battles, arch bosses, and castle sieges. This is a huge feature that a lot of people, including myself, have wanted. And it's especially going to be helpful for the healers in our groups, who can finally heal more than their base party that they're slotted into. Just another W, great change. We're getting some rune management overhauls, also coming in April. So they're going to fully remove the inventory management for runes. We're getting a new simplified UI. And yeah, hopefully all of this is just going to take out some of the tedium in our current rune system. Runes are now going to be auto upgraded and duplicate runes auto dissolved. So yeah, this is just going to be taking away some of the tedium in our current rune management. I think they also mentioned that they're going to be sharing some more details in a future Tico talks. Console's also getting HUD editing finally. So yeah, our console players will now be able to edit their HUD. So hopefully that helps them out. And yeah, that just about covers everything, I think. So the future is looking bright for Throne and Liberty. March is shaping up to be a huge month for us, and April looks just as packed. It's really great to see a lot of the community feedback has been taken into account in a lot of these updates. And yeah, you can really tell that they're listening. It's nice to finally feel a bit heard as a community in the MMO space, in a genre where typically a lot of our feedback is ignored or implemented poorly. So guys, drop a like if you enjoyed the video and consider subscribing. It really helps out in creating future content. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.